Perhaps the most well-known and infamous cryptid all over the world is the Sasquatch. Every global region has its own name for the creature, as well as their own stories attached to it. From the Bigfoot of North America to the Yowie of Australia, this cryptid has been spotted in several forests the world over. Today, let's look into some of these sightings in Russia, where the Sasquatch has not only been witnessed, but some claim that the corpse of one of these massive beasts resides in a museum in modern-day St. Petersburg. If you have been here since the beginning, you might have noticed that the name for the channel has changed. So allow me to welcome you to the Crafty Cryptid, a channel dedicated to the dark, the mysterious, and the bizarre, told in story form. I upload multiple videos every week. Let me know in the comments below what chilling stories you'd like to hear next, and leave a thumbs up to help with the YouTube algorithm. Our story begins with a letter detailing a hunting experience in Kamchatka, Russia, near the Alaskan Bridge. A quick background. Frank comes to see our band play all the time, and we are good friends. He often tells me stories about Vietnam and his hunting trips. I trust him completely. There ain't no tellin' what else he knows, but won't talk about for various reasons. What follows is the text of his letter. Here goes. This fall, my ex-partners went back to Kamchatka. I'll try to make this short. J.G. Wells, my main partner and owner of the firm now, shot a huge old boar brown bear. It was not quite as tall as my biggest Alaskan brown, at 9 foot 10 inches, but was immensely blocky, heavy, and muscular. Pictures taken right before the shot, as it looked like an M1A1 Abrams tank with dark brown fur, obviously the king of the valley. They had tracked it on and off for 4 days and had come across an interesting sight. An area near a creek, choked with strawberry bushes that looked like it was the scene of an epic battle. It was rocky and gravelly, so not much in the way of tracks, but it looked like 2 bulldozers had gone at each other. Saplings up to 4 inches in diameter snapped like soda straws. Bushes ripped up, scattered fur, etc. They presumed the boss had laid down the law about territory ownership to another boar. They were hot on his track and had to keep going as they did. JG saw something curious. It was a large tree branch, 4.5 to 5 feet long and about 5 to 6 inches in diameter. It obviously had been torn off a nearby tree. JG said he looked at it twice as they moved through the area because the big end had blood and fur on it. He just assumed at the time one of the bears had slammed into it while fighting. The next day, when they caught up with the boar, he was bedded in a deep thicket. They circled and got into position at the edge of a small clearing just as the boar came out. He was moving very slowly and stiffly up the mountain. JG got him with 2 shots from his .416 Wrigley. Nothing dramatic, but JG is a real hunter and insists on helping with the skinning. That's when they got an additional surprise. The boar was really beat up. Not fatally, but he was one sore, battered bear and had some very unusual wounds from a bear fight. When they rolled him over to skin him, there were big areas on his chest and stomach where the fur was pulled out, and claw marks. JG said it looked like something had jumped on his back and had its arms around him holding on while it bit. They thought, at first, a Siberian tiger, but the marks were wrong. A tiger wouldn't pull fur out, it can't clench its paws into fists, and the claw marks were wide and shallow. They were spread wide apart between the quote-unquote fingers. If you hold your hand out and spread your fingers, they spread pretty far apart. Another bears don't. Big brown bears, such as mine, have claws up to 4.5 to 5 inches long, but there are only 4 on the front paw. The 5th is a dew claw up where our wrist joint is. There were 5 of these, one in an opposable thumb position. Opposable thumb, Frank underlined with a pen. In other words, marks that appeared to come from a very large pair of hands. Hands underlined too. What was just as weird was when the huge hide was off up to the neck. There were several large bite marks on the bear's neck and shoulders. The curious thing is, they were not as deep as you would expect from a bear, and teeth marks were more rounded or molar-like. But most strangely, the whole bite mark was very horseshoe-shaped, like Frank drew the horseshoe shape. Whereas a bear's bite mark is much longer and narrower, like Frank drew the narrower mark. Well, the long and short of it was one of the local guides gave the following account of what had happened. The other guides agreed, and looked at the sign fairly closely at the site before moving on. Apparently, the boss boar had come up the creek into the wind and surprised a female, they used their word for Bigfoot, in his berry patch, and he attacked. The male Bigfoot jumped him from the cover where he had been feeding. The guides say the males are 9 feet tall and 750 to 800 pounds, and immensely strong. Anyway, the fight was on, horrific but brief. The female did not join in, but fled with her youngster. As soon as the female Bigfoot was safely out of danger, the male followed. He had inflicted some pretty severe bites to the bear, but the massively strong boar had got him off his back. The boar, they say, had inflicted a severe bite to probably the male's thigh and several nasty off-balance paw swats. The local guides say such encounters are rare, but they do happen when they surprise each other. True? Who knows? But my buddy of 40 years has hunted all over the world and taken several other bears. He has skinned hundreds of animals, and JG said those wound marks sure did not look like they came from another bear. The one other weird thing was that JG said that the boar really stunk, especially on his back. Now, a bear in the wild, damp, soggy, and muddy, does not smell like lilacs in the spring or a freshly showered and powdered woman. Having carried quite a few bears out, I can best describe them as a musty old throw rug that's been laying on an earthen basement damp floor all winter. JG agreed, but said this was different. He said the bear's back smelled foul, like whatever was clinging there smelled bad, and possibly even urinated on the bear while fighting. He likened it to a cross between the week-old napalmed water buffalo I hid behind in Nam for 3 days, and the wolverine scent or stink we smelled in Alaska. Anyway, that's the story. No proof of any kind, but lots of interesting oddities. JG asked about tracking the family, but the guides said there wasn't enough money in the world to get them to do something as foolish as track a mad, wounded, protective Bigfoot. Besides, they said, Late in the fall, they always went back from the coast to several super nasty hellhole little canyons that have natural hot springs, and they winter there. An interesting footnote. JG called today and told me the following item. He had called over there to check the status of some large salmon they had caught and left there to be mounted. Outfitters told him that after they left, the season was over and one guide rode one of the older Kawasaki snowmobiles back to the area to bring out some personal and camp items left. He parked the snowmobile on the ridge above the fight scene after picking up the things he had come for. He decided to go down to the little river and catch a few salmon. There was not much snow on the ridge, mostly ice, but there was much below, and he snowshoed about half a mile and fished for about an hour. He caught 4 salmon and climbed back out to discover his snow machine was gone. It had been picked up and shoved down the other side of the ridge, and it weighed almost 500 pounds. Fortunately for him, as he was 20 miles back in, it hung up on a bush only about 20 feet down the ridge side. After some struggle, fueled by a great desire to get the hell out of there, he got it back on its track, got it started, and got the hell out of there with only a mashed windshield and cracked hood. That's a subtle way of saying, go the hell away and leave us alone for the winter. Bill Lee, Boise, Idaho, January 27th, 2006. Our second story comes to us from the radio program Coast to Coast AM with George Newry. Surprising stories are sometimes shared during the call-ins of this show, and September of 2006 was no different. In the last hour of the overnight appearance of Jeff Meldrum's and John Bindernagel's discussion of Bigfoot, an American living in the Ukraine telephoned into the talk radio program with an intriguing account. The man identified himself as an environmental scientist. After the fall of the Soviet Union, he was hired to do air quality studies at the museum in the university in the changing Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg. While taking air samples in a 3-level basement beneath the museum in 1992, he made a startling find. The American scientist related that he came across an object in a glass case that, according to the label, was an animal taken near a Russian outpost in Northern California. The outpost was near Mendocino, and the mounted hominoid was collected in the late 1700s, from what he could tell on the museum label. The huge beast he saw, and said was examined, had several layers of skin, exhibited a foot 17 inches long, and was, amazingly, a 7-foot 1-inch tall, hair-covered, upright, Bigfoot-like figure. According to the dates of the founding of the universities in St. Petersburg, this scientist could only be talking about the St. Petersburg State University, which was founded in 1724. All the other universities in St. Petersburg are technology, electrical, polytechnical, and specialty institutes founded between 1828 and 1906. But a Russian discovery of an 18th or 19th century Californian Bigfoot body has never been mentioned before in any Russian hominological or cryptozoological correspondence, book, or literature, which leaves us with many questions. Is this account real? If so, why would the Russians want to hide their discovery from any correspondences? What do you think? Do you believe in the myth of the Sasquatch? Is it an actual humanoid beast or some unknown animal that scientists have yet to discover? Perhaps this is simply a case of legends uniting people across the globe. Let me know in the comments below what your take on the Bigfoot legend is. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more spooky crafting content, make sure you subscribe and ding the notification bell to be updated when I post my next crafting cryptid video. Leave a thumbs up and a comment down below for the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and come back soon, cryptids.